It's time for
DodgerHeads. What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Anthony Witrado, here to break down all things Los Angeles Dodgers. Anthony, I'm loving the intro. We had to change the music, some copyright stuff, but the new beat gets me fired up every time we get in this show.
That's a little head bobber. I like it.
Shout out to Saucepan, by the way. Saucepan with a Z at the front. He was the one who created the intro video for us. If you're into music videos and that kind of thing, you can check his stuff out. Saucepan on YouTube. But lots to get into, Anthony, and get your panic button out. Dodgers not in first place in the National League West. You're wearing red. It's code red over there in the Witrado household. He's nervous.
Yeah. 9-2. The two losses, it feels like if they just played like even keel level baseball, they win both of those games.
It's true.
Look, this team is not playing good baseball, which is nuts to say about a team that is 9-2.
Yeah.
But they're not really playing great baseball, and they're still finding ways to win. And they almost found a way to win that game today. And we'll talk about why that didn't happen a little later. But they'll find it, right? But I think it tells a certain story that this team is not playing well, and they're 9-2.
Yeah. And I might push back a little bit on not playing well in this sense. Pitching wise, they had the best ERA in Major League Baseball coming into this. They're among the league leaders in home runs. But I think what you're saying in the piece that I would agree with is there are easy things that they can fix, things that we have higher expectations for. Defense among them, they've made a bunch of errors defensively. Obviously, a gentleman named Andy Pages is going to be right in the middle of that conversation in a little bit. Offensively, yes, they're hitting home runs. They're not exactly hitting for average in the way that we would necessarily expect. And so I wouldn't say go as far as to say they're not playing well, but there are, and maybe this is just semantics, but there are things that can be cleaned up easily and would not take a ton of work to necessarily fix.
Yeah. But that's all part of it. Like, that's all part of the game too. Like if they were running the bases perfectly, but the bullpen was a little shaky, is it then okay to say that they're not playing great? You know what I mean? Like, I think there's levels to this, and to say that they have not played a lot of crisp baseball would be fair. Totally. And in all honesty, you mentioned the pitching. If it weren't for that pitching, they're probably playing about 500 or so.
Yeah.
And they're really panicking.
Totally. They're surviving on pitching and home runs are basically the only two things that they've got as their calling card. Now, I would say having the number one starting pitching group in baseball coming into today, and then having a bullpen who was like third in ERA with the most innings pitched, and also being, I think, in the top 2 or 3 maybe in total home runs hit, that's a good place to start. Like those are good building blocks to start with. Now let's just mix in maybe some fundamental defense, not screwing up on the bases, and having a couple more base hits, and I think we'll be cooking with gas here. And so we're going to get to all this because we're going to talk today's game, which gets into a lot of the conversation. We are going to talk Andy Pages. I know we've got some people that want to talk. What's the plan with Pages? How long is the leash? Who are the alternative options there? We're going to talk about some other guys who are playing well. Will Smith, Michael Conforto among them, but also a stock up, stock down check on Roki Sasaki. Where are we at? Are we out of the woods? Are we taking a deep breath? Were we never in the woods to begin with? We're going to debut a new segment, Dog of the Week, Bullpen Pitcher of the Week. We've got 3 good nominees for that one. And then, of course, it's the Dodgers. We've got some injury updates for you. Blake Snell to the injured list today with shoulder inflammation. Also, some more positive news on Shohei Ohtani, Evan Phillips, Clayton Kershaw, Michael Kopech among others. Let's get to a couple super chats. 300 with a couple taxes, death, and Blake Snell on the injured list. Yep, here we are. We don't know. We're gonna get into details and what Dave Roberts has said, but Anthony, just on the surface level, I don't think anybody is surprised to see a guy like Blake Snell pop up on the injury report.
No, this one is a little concerning, just because of, I think for me, the way it happened.
Yeah.
He tried to go out there and throw a bullpen, didn't work out. He felt the discomfort or the pain, and they made this move immediately. Now it could be because it's they're able to retroactivate it, and so it just works out from a timing standpoint. And maybe this was the best move, but the fact that they wasted no time, they were like, and look, he's probably been dealing with this since the last start, and so there's been days now,
yeah,
since they've been taking a look at this, and it hasn't gotten better. All of it is a little bit concerning, given that it's a shoulder thing.
Yeah, exactly. Shoulder and elbow, the two words you don't want to see, soreness or fatigue or inflammation. And that's what we get. We get the shoulder. We got a few super chats, 300 filling it up. We appreciate you, 300. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Folks like you allow us to continue doing what we get to do. So thank you. He says, does Pages do anything good? Can't run the bases. Certainly can't play center field. Now he can't hit. Oh, yes, he does strike out as well. You've got the right categories. I'm going to ask Anthony in just a few minutes to give me a grade on Pages' fielding, his base running, and then his offense. So I'm curious to see what he says. Stay tuned for that conversation. We got one last super chat. He says, short offseason, short spring training, trip to Japan, World Series rings, then a trip to the East Coast to play the Phillies. I'll give my 9-2 Dodgers a pass on the sloppy play. Look, they wouldn't give themselves a pass on this, but I think there's something to this, right? We're holding the Dodgers to a high standard, and I'm not saying we should lower the standard, but all things considered, what they've had to navigate so far, neither you or I, Anthony, are sitting here and complaining or bemoaning what we've seen from the Dodgers. We're just saying, as weird as it sounds at 9-2, there actually are pretty simple, clear pathways to improvement.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is that one, they're all very fixable things. Yeah. I think some of them are personnel decisions, but fixable. And it's just stuff that they just need to clean up. It's not like, they're all as a group hitting 111 and with an OBP of 200. It's not anything like that. Yeah. And we've talked about it before. Is they've found ways to grind out wins for games where they haven't played their best as a team, but they still end up with a W. Yeah. And so all of that is promising too. This is, even as is with the gripes right now, is still one of the best teams in baseball. And I mean, if today didn't show you, if you haven't already noticed in the previous, 11 games or whatever many they've played, they're never out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, Castellanos hits that grand slam and it's like, oh boy, this might be an early Sunday. And then Teo brings them back.
Chip.
And they get a lead. And so all of that stuff is promising, I think. And I don't think that these are things that we're like, man, hopefully by the end of April, this stuff is fixed. This stuff could get fixed next week.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, 300, thanks for the super chat. Agree. All I was thinking, Anthony, we said that is, it's not like they're asking questions that the answers aren't already within that clubhouse, right? It's not like we're like, holy smokes, we're 4 starting pitchers short, and there's no options. Who are we going to go out and trade or find? All the answers are right there. Just play a little bit better defense, run the bases a little bit better. Don't walk as many guys on the pitching side, and this team will be dialed in. Shout out to Pad Meat, by the way. Remember to like. We would appreciate that if you could go ahead and like this if you're watching us on YouTube. Thanks to the folks joining us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We greatly appreciate you, all of you, for hopping in and joining with us. Kevin with the super chat. Anthony, do the Phillies worry you in October? We just got 3 games against Schwarber, Harper, Nola, Sanchez, and others. Is this a team that worries you come postseason time?
They all worry me. For real, they all worry me because it's get hot for a week and you win. That's all it is. But in the grand scheme of things, I understand what Kevin's asking here. Not really. Yeah, not really. They're a really good team, but there are a couple of balls bouncing the other way from this being a sweep on the Dodger side too.
Totally. Yeah, my answer is the exact same as yours. Everybody worries me in a 5 or a 7 game postseason series, and the Phillies are higher up that list because of the arms that they could throw at you, and because of they've got 3 or 4 guys in that lineup that on one swing could change the course of a series. But I agree with you that I don't think the Dodgers and Phillies are in the same tier of baseball team.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, don't walk 900 guys today. Hit the ball a little bit better on Friday, and they might be leaving Philadelphia with a sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. Stockton Slap, why does it feel like we are lucky to be 9-2? This is kind of the where you stand to some degree.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it luck, because some of this is like I said, they just sort of grind out wins, and they're fortunate for some of the things, for some of the ways that they have played, whether that be on the bases or defensively, or the bad start in LA by Sasaki, like those kinds of things, still being able to win some of those games, the walk-off, in against the Tigers, like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Not playing their best baseball, but finding ways to win. They're fortunate to be able to be doing that, but they have sort of made their own luck because the pitching has been really good. Or on the game, like when Sasaki, was not good in LA, the bullpen came in and kind of shut it down for them and gave them a chance to come back and win still. So they're doing things like that. I understand what Stockton Slap is saying here. And the sentiment, I think, is correct. I just don't think it's luck. I think they're not playing great, but they've still found ways to win. With that said, they are, to talk about, they could have swept the Phillies. There are a couple of breaks on the other side too in some of these other games where, you know what, maybe it's not 9-2, maybe it looks like 7-4 or something like that, and it's you're feeling a little less good about it.
Aaron says, has Page's leash run out? If not, when is it out? Aaron, we appreciate the super chat. Love the Kobe picture as well. Look, we're going to dive into this. Stay tuned for about 5 or 6 minutes because we're going to get into this. I think the question on has Page's leash run out is, has anybody behind him earned the right to go and grab that spot? Has anybody impressed to such a large degree that the Dodgers' hand is going to be forced? That's the conversation I'm going to have with Anthony in just a second. Richard has an answer for you. He said 2 words for Page's: pizza delivery. Figure it out at OKC. 10 walks today for the Dodgers. The wet mound wasn't an issue for the Phillies. Edman and Teo are studs. Maybe slightly harsh, Richard, on Andy Pages there, but I understand the sentiment. Stockton Slap with the super chat. The Giants look for real, unfortunately. We're 10 games in. The Giants are in first, technically tied with the Dodgers with one fewer win, but one more. Dodgers have one more loss. The Padres just behind, but the Giants are ahead on winning percentage. Real quick on the Giants, Anthony, like, are you buying them at all as a playoff? I'm not saying they're going to win the NL West, but as a team that could make a run at the postseason.
I think they can make a run for a spot. Yeah. I watch a lot of Giants baseball. And I think that, what's that?
I said on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, I don't consider myself fortunate for having to, but yes, I do watch a decent amount of Giants baseball. They're a decent team. They're better than they were last year. But they've also been fortunate with some things breaking the right way for them. They've got a couple of walk-offs. They've played they've made some really big defensive plays at right times to help them stay alive in some of these games. So a team that you can't take lightly, but I'm not like this team's a shoo-in for one of the wild card spots or something like that, or like they're going to challenge the Dodgers for the division title. I don't see that happening. I don't think they're deep enough. And I don't think that there's too many holes in the lineup, I think, for them. So like I said, I don't think they're not a last place team. Obviously the Rockies are in our division, but I don't think that they're a team that you can necessarily sleep on.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because look, the Padres look pretty good. We know the Diamondbacks. I think most people, I think you were the lone exception picking the Padres to finish second ahead of the Diamondbacks. So there's going to be some real competition in the NL West. And, as a Dodgers fan, I would not like to see the Giants as a competitive team in the midst of that. So we got some bad news potentially on that front. Laura says, if Blake Snell is out for more than 10 days, who is the next man up? It's a great question, Laura. Justin Robleski and Landon Knack are the 2 names that are going to be in the mix. Bobby Miller pitched today. Otherwise, he might be in the mix, but you could make a pretty compelling case that Robleski and Knack deserve to be ahead of Bobby Miller, both because of what happened last year, but also because of how those guys have pitched so far this season. So we'll get into that in just a little bit as well. Stockton Slap says, go all in, trade for Luis Robert. Pages is done. I don't know. Luis Robert, I'm not the biggest Luis Robert fan in the world, so he probably wouldn't be the center fielder that I'd go out and target, even though he's the one who's available. But I don't know. I forget you. Are you the one with me that you're not a big Luis Robert Jr. fan?
Yeah, that would not be my answer to this problem. And it is a problem, but I was thinking about this. I was driving today, and I had to listen to the first couple of innings of the game on the radio. And so I was driving, and I was thinking about this Pages situation. And before that play happened in center field, and like, who would the trade candidate be if they had to go like get an external fix for this? And I could not think of anybody. Roberts was the name. Robert was obviously the name that came up, but it's like, I'm still not sold that that's a deal that they do.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we'll talk again. I think they have some internal options that, if you squint hard enough, aren't terrible for some different reasons. So, Jake, crazy. The Cards basically gave away Tommy Tanks. Fabian Ardaya had a great piece on The Athletic that published after the game today, basically talking about how the Dodgers have tweaked some things with his swing as expected. And I always forget, is it from the left side that he has historically been much worse?
Yes.
And he has like 3 of his home runs are from the left side. And basically that's the piece that they kind of went into the lab on and trying to fix. So, but yeah, you look back on that trade and it was basically Miguel Vargas netted them a year and a half of Michael Kopech and a year and half a year of Tommy Edman that then turned into an extension. So safe to say successful trade, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Edman is a nice player for them because he fills a bunch of holes.
Yep.
Like he's versatile defensively, and he's like above average kind of wherever he goes. I know the center field stuff is like, kind of depends what you look at in terms of how he grades out. He's elite at second base. But with this sort of power surge and him becoming a better offensive player, it just adds to it. It gives length in a spot in the lineup that you really did not think was going to be the case. You just thought like good, solid player, fine. And he's turning into like a serious threat and like is on team scouting reports as like a guy that you have to stress over also. And so, that was a fantastic trade, and he's been so much better than expected. And the Dodgers, once again, pro development at the major league level, unlocking something that another team couldn't.
Yeah, and to their credit, being willing to, and I mean, I guess he was a free agent, but essentially like going out and paying him the money and giving him a massive financial commitment to some degree before they had seen it. You've pointed out that he had a nice run with the Dodgers towards the end of last season, obviously NLCS MVP, but basically they handed him the money betting on some sustainability on some of those numbers. Now, if the numbers were fully sustainable, which they appear to be, then it's going to be a massive bargain, but kudos to the Dodgers for getting out ahead of that one, not making it like a 1-year deal and we'll see. And then they having to sign him to a much bigger number down the road. Stockton, another super chat. I still hate Mookie at shortstop. He's average at best. I don't mind Mookie Betts at all at shortstop. That's me personally. Everybody knows where I stand. Have you had any concerns? I mean, look, he hasn't been perfect, but anything that's glaring to you?
No, and he's actually made some pretty nice plays. The errors, look, with this fan base, the errors and the misplays are just going to stand out more. They are, because of how this has all developed. But he's actually made some pretty nice plays to both sides, to both hands. We just need him to be average. That's fine. Like Mookie Betts' defense is the least concerning thing of like the list of issues. Like that for me, that's so low. I think for the team also, it's so low on that list that it barely warrants for them like a second look, because he's been fine. Yeah. Like that embarrassing error the other night was ugly. And like, people are going to be up in arms about it because put him back in right field or move him to second base or whatever. And like, I get it. I get it. But he's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And keep in mind, this is a guy who's still learning in a new position to a large degree and who missed a huge chunk of time heading into the Japan series, during the Japan series, after the Japan series when he was sick. So we expected some growing pains. We've seen some growing pains. Another one, extend Conforto now before his stock skyrockets. I had some bad preseason takes. Conforto was not one of my bad preseason takes. I was very high on him. We're going to get to him in stock up and stock down, so stay tuned. Stockton Slap also says Mookie at second, Edman at short makes way more sense. I've said this repeatedly on this show. I think Tommy Edman's the best defensive second baseman in Major League Baseball, and I would rather have a guy who's elite at that position rather than two like above average guys. I don't know if Mookie Betts is dramatically better at second than he is at shortstop. But I do think Tommy Edman is a lesser defender at shortstop than he is at second base. So keep the guy where he's elite would be my sort of just default here, Anthony.
Yeah, there's not enough of a trade-off to make that switch. Like because Tommy Edman isn't elite at shortstop. Yeah. And so moving him there, taking away some of his defensive prowess by moving him to the other position and then moving Mookie over, the increase in, let's say, defensive ability for Mookie moving to second is not worth losing the Gold Glove caliber second baseman for maybe a slightly above average shortstop with Edman.
Totally. And we're going to talk Pages in a sec. I keep saying that. The super chat's flooding in, which we love. So thank you for that. When we talk Pages, we'll talk about the possibility of, I see people in the chat saying, do we just move Edman to center field rather than shortstop? I do feel like the Pages situation has quieted the Mookie shortstop stuff because people are far more quick to say, hey, let's put Tommy Edman out there in center field. Yeah. And so we'll get to that here in just a sec. Yeah. Let's talk briefly about today's game. We mentioned they dropped the series to the Phillies after an 8-7 loss today. The headline here was Tyler Glasnow, specifically that bottom of the third. It's dumping rain, pouring rain. He's trying to get mud out of his cleats. His fastball velocity is way down. 3 straight walks for Tyler Glasnow. Then it's a RBI bloop single. Then it's a wild pitch. Then it's another walk. He gets out of it. He gets pulled, And then Alex Vesia, first pitch to Castellanos, an 89-mile-an-hour fastball that was an absolute tank to put them up 6-2. The Dodgers do fight back. Teoscar Hernandez, 2 home runs, an RBI double, and a sac fly in this game. Mookie Betts and Will Smith, RBI doubles each, gives the Dodgers the lead before Blake Treinen, who had came into the game without having allowed a run this season. He ends up allowing 2 runs, including a line drive at Andy Pages that probably was going to be a double no matter what, but Andy Pages definitely didn't help himself. So let's just hone in on Glasnow for a couple minutes here, Anthony. Yeah. It was pouring rain. He was awesome in his first one. Was there absolutely anything you saw today that gives you even the slightest pause on a guy like Glasnow?
He didn't make it back. He didn't make it long enough for me to see him on the TV. That was part of the radio part for me today. And it sounded like he was fine, until that inning. Yeah. And it sounded like he was also, like, aside from the rain, battling the other things that go along with it, including the pitch clock, the mud in his cleats and trying to deal with that and be back on the mound in time for the 15-second clock and all of that stuff. And it just kind of maybe got to him. I think Dave Roberts sort of admitted as much, like that, he might've got a little rattled. I don't think he used that word, but that was basically what he was saying.
Fabian Ardai's piece talked a lot about, like, he was thinking so much. Glasnow said afterward, he was so worried about where he was going to plant his foot and whether it was going to stick that he wasn't really dialed in, basically.
Yeah. And that's a thing that, like, look, man, you got to get through that.
Yeah.
You're a veteran. You got to figure that out, because by the time you walk the second guy in a row, you got to go, okay, I got to stop worrying about this thing. And if you think it's going to be an injury concern, then call timeout, bring the umpire out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, do something about it. Anyway, to the larger question, bigger picture, no, I'm not worried about him. I think this was sort of a fluky kind of situation. He was in his own head about it, probably, is what it sounded like. And, it derailed his start and put the Dodgers behind it. And, got him too far in the hole that the 1-run lead that they eventually got wasn't large enough. So I think he's going to be fine. Still a guy who's going to be on a bunch of Cy Young ballots, I think, as long as he stays healthy. This was just sort of one, I think, for him to throw away.
Yeah, I'm with you. The mental side is slightly worrisome because it was rain, and I know it was heavy. It looked awful, and I can only imagine trying to grip a baseball.
Yeah.
But to your point, for a veteran to get that mentally rattled, again, I'm not overreacting to it. I kind of could care less because the odds that he throws another pitch in the pouring rain this season are fairly low. But I just would have hoped that he could lock in a little bit there. Maybe it's a couple walks, maybe it's a couple runs, but 4 walks, a wild pitch, just a bad look overall.
Yeah, agree.
Some more super chats here. Stockton Slap, going back to the conversation. If you keep a guy where he's elite, then put Mookie Betts in right field. I love Mookie Betts. I'm a defender. He's just not elite in right field anymore. I think he's very good, probably out there, but I just don't think he's like, Gold Glove shoe-in right field like he was at one point.
Yeah, I don't think so anymore either. But I agree. And Stockton Slap makes a good point in that, like, he's probably a better right fielder than he is a shortstop. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
But look, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they have two guys. They have 2 guys who can only play the corners already out there.
Yeah, a lot of dominoes have to fall in a bad way for Mookie Betts to end up back in right field. And also, like, let's just remember, they're doing this they're doing this for Mookie Betts. And whether people like it or not, he's going to be their shortstop. And if you know what, for all the stuff that Mookie has had to eat during his short time with the Dodgers at this point, he's been so flexible and willing to do whatever they've needed that if they want to give him a season to see if he's a major league shortstop, that if he can be serviceable there, they're going to do that. And you know what? I'm fine with it. I'm fine because I don't think he's going to be bad enough where like he's consistently costing them wins.
Yeah. Are you do you buy at all? Bill Plunkett had an article about Mookie Betts' shortstop, and the headline is basically, this decision is all about winning. The point of the article was this is not Mookie Betts demanding that he play shortstop. This is Mookie Betts doing what is best for the team to win. It seems like most people just out of hand reject that premise. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think we do know that Mookie has had a desire to play shortstop.
Sure.
It has worked out now that they now have an elite second baseman and that they have guys who they don't have any center fielders.
Yeah.
And so putting Mookie Betts in right field still does not solve the other bigger issues on the team defensively.
Yeah. Agreed. Stockton says we have played all playoff teams. Schedule's about to get softer now, which is true. He also says Ohtani looks as badass as he ever has as a Dodger.
Agreed. Maybe not ever, but yeah.
Yeah. The viral video of Kim getting congratulated doesn't bode well for Pages this week. There's a video going around of Kim getting some hugs and handshakes. I would suggest the fact that we haven't seen anything yet connecting that to a move up for Ha-Sung Kim, probably means that it's much ado about nothing, but stay tuned on that front. So let's get into the Pages stuff, because that's the big conversation. That's what everybody wants to talk about. And I promised somebody earlier that I would ask you these 3 questions. So I'm going to ask you to grade Andy Pages, the performance we've seen so far, in 3 categories: defense, base running, and offense. Let's start with defense. Your grade for Andy Pages, the center fielder, A through F, teacher, Mr. Witrado, would be what?
A D.
Okay. Why not an F? Because I have a D as well, but why not an F?
Yeah, because there was a time, I think, through Japan and probably through the Tiger series and probably even through parts of the second series where we're like, he's been fine.
Yeah.
And
you kind of forgot him for the first 6 or 7 games of the season. You forgot he was out there.
Yeah. And then on the defensive end, the floor kind of came out from underneath him.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see why none of us thought that he was a center fielder. And, earlier in the season, like I said, we were like, he's been fine. If he can keep it as just that's about as best as we can hope for, then it'll be okay. But that has not happened anymore. And so it's not a complete failure to this point, but it's certainly a D is below average, well below average, and he's been well below average.
Hey, D's get degrees, Anthony, is what people used to say. Base paths, I have a feeling you're going to be less kind to him on the base paths.
Total failure.
Yeah, I've got F- written down. I genuinely, Anthony, have never seen a worse base runner than Andy Pages.
It's awful. His awareness is what bothers me the most. Like, you can make a bonehead play or whatever. Like, Yasiel Puig used to make a ton of toot blands.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were like, I'm going to try to stretch this
Yeah.
first to third or stretch this single into a double. It was at least aggressive and you like understood the thought process, even if you
100%.
didn't necessarily agree with it, right?
Yeah.
With him, it's just like, what were you
Yeah.
thinking there?
Yeah.
And then it's also like some of the stuff that gets a little bit overlooked is like he's running through stop signs now consistently, stuff like that. Like he hasn't gotten thrown out at the plate yet. So I think we've kind of ignored it a little bit, but like he's running through stop signs.
Yeah, well, hey, I've said this before. Shout out to Dino Ebel. Seems like a great guy. You're not getting negative marks for running through Dino Ebel's stop signs in my book. We'll just leave it at that. But
That's
a lot
fair.
of the other stuff you get when a line drive gets hit back to the pitcher and you're standing on third and the ball gets caught and your next step is towards home plate and not towards third base. That's where you lose me, bro. That's where you lose me.
So bad. And I think it's a lack of a couple of things. I think it's a lack of like baseball awareness.
Yeah.
Like just a low baseball IQ, incredibly talented, but just like doesn't know the game. It feels like, right? Like you're taught at the very earliest levels of like just very basic competitive baseball, freeze on a line drive.
Yeah. Well, and look, and standing at third base, he shouldn't have been that far off of the bag to begin with. I mean, there's like 12 things he did wrong on that one again.
Just on that one play. Yeah. And then I think the other one is to this point, situational awareness is non-existent.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to hitting. So far, he's hitting 118 with a 268 on-base percentage and a 147 slug. He's got 14 strikeouts and 34 at-bats. I'll add that I've pointed this out a couple times in the offseason. He was league average offensively last year. And I think a lot of people in their minds have him as much better than that. He's better against lefties. But on the whole, he was a 100 weighted runs created plus, exactly league average last season. So offensively, from what you've seen from Pages, what grade would you give it?
I would give it a D because he's had some moments where he was able to get bat to ball and has had good outcomes. Hasn't been a total failure, but it's close. It's getting there. It's trending to the F. He's not necessarily hitting for power right now. The strikeouts are becoming a legitimate problem for him. The way he's taking these plate appearances is not promising. Doesn't look like it's trending in the right way. So not a complete failure yet, but like talk to me next Sunday.
Yeah, the only case you could make for higher than a D is relative to some other people and where his numbers sit. I mean, the on-base percentage, at least you could look 268 from an on-base percentage isn't like unbearably bad, but a 147 slugging percentage is. So, maybe you could talk yourself into a D plus C minus, depending on if we're rounding up here, but it's been bad. So let's talk through the alternatives, and I'm just going to run through the list, Anthony, and then I'll come back to you and say, what would you do if you were the Dodgers? So alternative number one, Kike Hernandez. Now, Kike Hernandez currently is needed at first base, so maybe he doesn't belong fully on this list. He's the guy that I wanted as my starting everyday, either second base or center fielder. He has not been great. 103 batting average, 129 on base percentage, but a 414 slug because every hit he has this year has been a home run. So he's got that going for him. So number one alternative, and these are not in order, this is just a list, is Kike Hernandez. Second alternative, Chris Taylor. No, I'm just kidding. He's not on this list. Third, James Outman. Outman hitting 152 with a 300 on base and a 242 slug in AAA with a bunch of strikeouts. It's also worth pointing out on Outman that when they called up Hunter Fiducia, they said it was because they wanted a left-handed bat off the bench, and they did not choose James Outman. So just put that in mind. Haesung Kim, 273 on average, 368 on base, 455 slug with 5 extra base hits. He has played second base the last 2 games for Oklahoma City, did not play today. Has had some experience in center field. I talked to somebody in Oklahoma City, and they basically said nothing overwhelmingly positive or negative was the defensive report from Haesung Kim, which, hey, that's probably a good thing considering the background. Miguel Rojas is an option, 105 batting average, 150 on base, 105 slugging percentage for Miggy Rowe. And then the last one I'll throw in here is the newest Dodger, Estuary Ruiz. He is 3 for 8 in 2 games so far in Oklahoma City, including a double and 2 walks. Does have 3 strikeouts, does have a steal, and one of those singles was an infield single. So those are the options, and I'll summarize using the categories we used earlier. So I'll start with, just in no particular order, you've got James Outman, who I would say he's the best defensive option by a mile. Because he's the best defensive center fielder in this group. He also allows you to keep Tommy Edman at second base. The bat is as bad. Whatever grade you just gave Andy Pages' bat, I believe Outman could give you that. Probably not a whole lot more based on track record. But he's a much better base runner. Again, the floor is the basement in that case, but he's a better base runner. He's a good base runner. Rojas, good defense, terrible bat, mediocre runner, moves Edman into center field. Hye-Sung Kim, I'll say good defense. He's probably good defensively at second base, forces you to move Edman to center field, but in that case, the defense is pretty good. The bat is a mystery. Again, I would say can't be worse than Andy Pages, and he is a plus runner. Ruiz, he is defensively, I would say the worst of all these options. I know people see speed and just assume he's going to be good. He has graded out really badly defensively. He has no arm, which means everybody advances on him. They take the extra bag against him. The bat is a mystery, but he is plus as a runner. So Kike, I'm moving off to the side because he's playing first base. Chris Taylor, I'm moving off to the side. I don't have to explain that. But you've got Pages, and you could say extend the leash. You've got Outman, you've got Rojas, you've got Kim, or you've got Ruiz. What do you think the move is for the Dodgers?
I would like to see the Pages leash go for another series.
Okay.
And with Kim on the doorstep, I think is the best option. I don't like necessarily moving Edman off of second base, but I think from an all-around defensive perspective, this is probably gives you the best defense at both positions. Based on what you have to do, and maybe start playing Kim more in center field and let's just kind of let this play out and see what that experiment looks like.
Yeah.
We know that he can probably play second base, so he'd be fine there. I just think that if they wanted to bring Outman up, I think they would have brought him up already.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably not even for at least for them is not part of the discussion. I think it probably comes down to Kim at this point, because I also don't think they want to move Rojas into the everyday lineup to put Edman in center field. I think they would rather just keep Edman at second base and deal with Pages in center. The big problem with this is that center field's an elite position, an elite defensive position, and it's a premium one. And so that's why I think I'm like, okay, if I can still have good defense at second base and then solid to good defense in center field with one of Edman or Kim, that is the best of these options right now, I think.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point. I see some people, I see GI in the chat says the lesser of all evils is probably Outman, and I think that's a good way of putting it. I keep saying, I just wish one of these guys would just have grabbed this thing by the throat and said, I deserve to be the guy, and here's why. Nobody's done that. You can make a case, Kim, over the last 5 or 6 games, it's a small sample size, has been good. I think Outman is the floor, right? Outman, you know what you're getting defensively, you know what you're getting on the base paths, and the way Pages is hit, it's basically the same bat. So you're just upgrading defense and you're upgrading base running with Outman. However, he's been really bad offensively. And so I think if you're going to pull the trigger on moving off of Pages, you're probably like, I need more than that. I need to feel better about something. I think Kim is the mystery box. We don't know how his skills are going to translate. We don't know how good he is defensively at second base or at center field. We don't know how the bat is going to translate at the major league level. It was really rough during spring training. It's been good for the last week in OKC. So Ruiz, I need more time. Like, you could talk me into Kim or Ruiz, honestly, if the Dodgers think they can fix something in Ruiz, but neither of those guys is super compelling. So I actually land at the same place as you, which is I'm fine if Andy Pages gets another week or two just to see what the rest of these guys do down in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, Ruiz is intriguing just because of the speed. And you think like, man, maybe they could turn him into a serviceable defensive player out there.
Yeah.
But I think that's a project.
There's a reason the Athletics decided that this guy wasn't worth the roster spot. Like, sometimes with options, he could still be optioned, and the A's looked at him and said, "Nah, we're good." So I mean, the A's are not the most intelligent organization in the world, so that doesn't mean everything, but it kind of has to sort of mean something.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I said, he's a project, and I think you make a good point about like we don't know exactly what Kim is at either defensive position. I think we all feel more confident with him at second base that he can handle that position.
Yeah.
But we have not seen enough of him at Oklahoma City in center field to be able to make a real judgment on that part of it. And obviously, we've seen him play or hit better in Oklahoma City than he did during spring training. So none of these options for me are like, that's clearly the one. I think for me, the Kim one is the best of like just a bunch of bad to mediocre choices. Yeah. Which is why I'm like, let's see if Pages can try to figure this out. He just had a really bad series. Now let's see if this, he's had a talking to, and I'm sure maybe a couple of the veterans have been in his ear a little bit. And let's see now if he can come back and start to show signs of turning this thing around. And if he does, then it might be all right. But if not, then I think you have to look at one of these options sooner rather than later. And as of right now, for me, it would be Kim. I would be most comfortable with that one.
Totally. Yeah, I'll be curious. I think the most likely scenario is the Dodgers are going to give Pages at least another series. Say, hey, let's go play a Washington team that's not expected to be all that amazing, and let's see if he can turn it around. I'll point out, everybody was calling for Gavin Lux's head for the first 2 or 3 months of last season. The Dodgers wrote it out. I don't think they had a better option sitting there. And it worked out for them. He was really, really good for them over the second half of the season. So the Dodgers have exhibited some patience historically in situations like this. Whether or not they continue to do so with Andy Pages remains to be seen. I just don't. It's almost like if I've got, a D plus sitting in the garage, right? I need more than a C minus to feel like I'm going to move off of the D plus that I know and that I'm familiar with and that I have reasonable expectations for. Like, in order to get me off of that, you need to guarantee me like a C plus. And as stupid as that might sound, that's how we work in most of our life, right? Like, we will take the bad but familiar over the unknown, because sometimes we just choose to be risk averse. And guess what? The Dodgers are 9-2 with Andy Pages in their center field. So they're kind of saying, if we're 9-2 with this guy, then we don't necessarily have to feel like we need to fix this tomorrow.
And you know what? We may not be having this conversation. This part of the conversation might not have this kind of depth. Also, if the Dodgers didn't walk a whole bunch of guys today.
Yeah.
Because he did make that awful, awful play in center field. And let me say this. Long dash. He cannot, Andy Pages cannot play balls that are hit at him.
Yeah. And that's probably I'll say this, that's probably a double. He made it look worse because he turned left and then right and then left, and then it landed on the wrong side of him. Where that ball was hit, there's like 10% of center fielders in all of Major League Baseball that are catching that ball.
I agree with you there. That ball was put in a place where like not a lot of guys are going to get to. Yeah. However, by the time he found out where he actually was on the planet, he was in a position where if he would have just taken the other shoulder route from the start, he might have caught that ball. I thought he would have caught it based on where he ended up. Because in golf they call it pin high. He was pin high to where the ball landed essentially. Which is why I thought like if he takes the better route, he probably catches it. Anyway, if they are able to pitch a little better, then we're probably not in that situation where it looks ugly. But at some point, this conversation is going to need to be had, and they're probably already having it in the organization. They probably have been having it in the organization.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They've been having it. So, we'll see. Let's do a couple more positive stock ups here. Let's talk Will Smith, Michael Conforto. This will be brief. I just have to shout it out. Will Smith has a .583 on base percentage today, Anthony, and it went down because he went 2 for 4 today. He's slugging over 600. It's the highest on base percentage in the National League by like 70 points or something like that. And I know he's typically good at the beginning of seasons. He struggles. I know all of that. I hate being I feel like we aren't talking enough about ... I feel like we aren't talking enough about the fact that we have a guy who has a .583 on base percentage, Anthony. He's been unbelievable so far.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. We were a little concerned about him coming into the season, with the foot injury and all of that stuff and everything. But I also said, though, I was like, his at-bats to this point have looked way different than they did last season. And that's continued. And it feels like that approach is what it is. And like, obviously this OBP will come down a bit and, he'll come back down to earth some, but I think like him being considered again, the best offensive catcher in baseball is a conversation we're going to be having in a few months still.
Totally. And I see people in the chat, and I think it's totally fair that he's going to have to put this together for 6, 7, 8 months in order to buy it, because we've been fooled by the first half All-Star Will Smith that then struggles. But guess what? I'd rather have first half All-Star Will Smith in the first half than have neither, right? Like this is a better version of first half Will Smith than we've seen, than I was expecting. And so good stuff there. Michael Conforto gets a shout out here as well. Going into today, he led the Dodgers in slugging percentage. He's got an OPS over 1,000. He is now behind Mookie Betts and Teoscar Hernandez, which I think Teoscar heard the chatter about Conforto yesterday and said, oh yeah, 2 home runs, a double, 5 RBIs, and a pair of walks today. So take that, Michael Conforto. But Conforto, I know lots of people in my life were skeptical about Michael Conforto. They were not impressed by what they saw through spring training. And I'm just glad that he has performed the way he has out of the gates, because I think Conforto could be a real dude and a guy that like Teoscar last year, makes himself a lot of money on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, definitely. Stock way up on Michael Conforto. I was a guy who was, when they signed him, I was like, meh, okay. Like, yeah. And then my head always goes to, when they make these kinds of deals, they might be able to unlock something.
Yeah. And
he also played in San Francisco last year. So like, yeah, maybe not the best barometer of like where he is offensively in his career. Yeah. He's looked great for them so far.
That was one of the best stats. He had like 24 home runs last year, and 20 of them came outside of San Francisco. Right. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Do we need to have a stock down talk on Tommy Edman, Anthony? 261 on base percentage. We just spent all that time on Andy Pages. Andy Pages is getting on base more often than Tommy Edman is.
Yeah, but if Andy Pages had 5 home runs and a 150-something OPS plus, we probably wouldn't be having the Pages conversation either.
I'm doing that for the people. Yeah. Chat is going to light up.
Tell us how you feel about cheese, Jeff.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm not lying. 261 on base percentage for Tommy Edman. So there you go. I'm just saying. I'm just stating facts, people. I'm not here. No opinions offered. No opinions offered. I'm the guy asking questions. Okay, let's talk Roki Sasaki. We're doing stock up, stock down. This segment, I can only say this so many times. This is not an overreaction segment. This is a what have we seen from you lately segment. This is not sell your stock. This is not go crazy and spend all your life savings buying a stock. It's just, what is the trend of the person that we're talking about? Roki Sasaki is the interesting one. We know what the first 2 starts were. I think mixed bag would be a nice way of putting what we saw from Roki Sasaki in the first 2 outings. He comes back in this one. He gives up 2 singles and a stolen base to start the game, gives up a run in that first inning, but then bounces back. A clean second, a clean third, works around a leadoff walk in the 4th, gives up a walk and a single to start the 5th, and then comes back out. But ends up gets 4+ innings, basically. He said he had been anxious all week to find something he could be confident in. And then after the game, through his interpreter, quote, "I felt I had something. Last time around, I felt like I wanted to throw strikes, but I couldn't. I really worked on my mechanics since that game, and I really feel like I was able to do that today." What did you make of what we saw from Roki this past week?
I said on one of our more recent shows that if they can fix whatever is off about him mechanically that's causing him to have an inconsistent delivery, that I thought he would be okay. Because that's why you had those scattered fastballs all over the place. And that's not I don't know how to pitch thing. That's like something was wrong mechanically in his delivery.
Yeah.
Sounds like they got that sort of starting to figure that out. Fastball command was way better. And I thought his poise was impressive considering where he was coming from and all the talk around everything that had happened with him in that second start, because he worked himself out of some jams there in Philadelphia. And if he's the guy who all these hot take artists were saying he was after that Detroit start, that guy crumbles against that lineup in those situations that he was in. And we're having a much different conversation. talking about a stock now, he's taken it from going this way, and it's going back this way now.
Yeah.
His stock is on the way up. I think that he looked like he was confident, and you saw him after that double play that got that the inning that he came out of and got the Dodgers out of that jam. Like his reaction there, he's engaged again.
Yeah.
Because I think he was so dejected after that second start. It was like, man, we got to bring this guy back. And I thought that was a lot of what Dave Roberts was doing in that conversation with him. He was bringing him back. And I really liked the bounce back that he had. Like that,
Yeah.
I think that shows a lot about his poise and his character and the kind of pitcher that I think we're going to come to love over the next 6 years.
I think it's the same going back to the Mookie Betts conversation at shortstop we had. I think we just have to adjust and be realistic with our expectations. Like if we expected a 23-year-old coming over from a different league to make a start in Tokyo and then to make a start on opening weekend in Los Angeles in front of Dodger Stadium and then to make a start in Philadelphia against one of, the better teams in the National League for his first 3 appearances and be perfect, then of course you're going to be disappointed. If you thought this guy was going to be like, where Paul Skeens is today, you thought you were going to get that right out of the gate, then of course you're right to be disappointed. Do I think there have been some growing pains and some bumps in the road that I wasn't expecting? Yes. But at the same time, through 3 starts, am I ready to make a judgment on where this guy's entire season or career is going to be? No. Like you take these little moments and you take snapshots and you say, okay, can't find the strike zone. Second start, still can't find the strike zone. Third start, hey, got himself in some trouble, found a little bit more of the strike zone, was able to work around some stuff. I love what you just said. The stock is not up above where it started, but it's definitely trending back towards that direction. So it's a stock tiny up for me. Patience with Roki Sasaki and with Blake Snell, who we're going to talk about in a second on the injured list. He's got some time. Like he's going to keep getting shots at this thing. And Dave Roberts even said, hey, we're going to see what happens in the start in Philadelphia and then go from there. Well, he pitched pretty well. Blake Snell gets injured. I think it's safe to say Roki Sasaki is going to get a few more bites at the apple, if you will, in this one. Let's go to our next segment here. This is a new one. We're going dog of the week. Bullpen dogs, if you followed the Dodgers last year. I was doing stock up and stock down, and I had 3 relievers on this list, and I said, forget this. They need their own segment, Anthony. We need a dog of the week. So hopefully I remember to do this every week with you on Sunday night. Some people can hold me accountable. But I've got 3 relievers for you, and then we'll let you in the chat vote on who the dog of the week is. I've got Ben Kasparias, Jack Dreyer, and Anthony Bonda as the 3 nominees, and I'll read you their performances. Kasparias, 7 innings, no earned runs, 7 strikeouts, 5 base runners allowed. So again, a 0 ERA, a strikeout per inning, and 5 base runners allowed. Jack Dreyer, 7 2/3, 1 earned run, 5 base runners, 8 strikeouts. So a little bit better whip, a little bit more strikeout, 1 earned run allowed. And then Anthony Bonda, 5 innings, no earned, 1 hit, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, less innings pitched, but a better whip and more strikeouts than the 2. So Kasparias, Dreyer, and Bonda are your 3 nominees for dog of the week. Anthony, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, this is a tough choice, man. I'll tell you what, my initial response was to go with Bonda on this because he's establishing himself as a key piece to this, whatever we want to call it, dog pound or kennel, whatever, right? And a high leverage guy as well. But I was thinking about it a little more, and for me, Dreyer is a guy who we had hopes for, but we didn't know exactly what he was going to give us.
Yeah.
And I think what he's done this week sort of shows like they got another guy.
Yeah.
And so for me, he's my dog of the week because I think now he's turned himself into a guy that you can count on. Bonda's already that. Yeah. And he just continued to live that, to prove that true. But I think Dreyer is now establishing himself as another member of that group, and that's a big, big deal.
Look, I made some terrible bold predictions at the beginning of the season. I want to remind the people that Jack Dreyer is going to be a dude was one of my bold predictions. All right. So I'm feeling decent. Look, we made some stupid ones. We look bad. Okay. Some of them may be coming back around if you look at stats like on base percentage, but Jack Dreyer was maybe a positive one. I know Scott is a Ben Kasparias guy. We had him on the show at spring training. He's awesome.
Every time
I'm
Ben
with
comes
you.
into a game, every time Ben comes into a game, I think immediately I think of Scott. And every
Yeah.
time now that Dryer comes into a game, I immediately think of you.
Hey, we'll take it. We'll take it. We'll take it. Although I would argue that maybe Scott doesn't get full custody over Ben Kasparius, but if I get full custody over Jack Dryer, maybe I won't complain. I see a lot of nominations for Bonda. 5 innings, 1 hit, 6 strikeouts, no runs. That's tough to beat. Some people made the point that Dryer maybe gets some extra credit for 2 outings of like 2+ innings in there, really eating some big innings in a game like today. He gets 7 outs on like 32 pitches. So kudos to him. Kasparius, no earned runs across 7 innings. So I think we've got different. It's tough to choose. We're based on the chat, based on the conversation. I think I'm going to shift a little bit, and I'm going to say Ben Kasparius gets dog of the week. 7 innings, no earned runs, 7 strikeouts, some nominations in the chat as well. So we'll go. Congratulations, Ben Kasparius, the first ever nominee award winner for the dog of the week. Shout out to you, Ben Kasparius. We don't have a trophy, so sorry. You get this video living in infamy there. Let's talk injury updates. And we got a bunch of these. Thank you to the chat, by the way, for joining. Thanks to everybody, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, for hopping in. Almost 1,600 people in here on a Sunday night. If you haven't already, head over to the YouTube and please like. If you're new here, subscribe, ring the notification bell. That means a lot to us, helps us keep doing what we're doing. But let's get to some injury updates. The big one, of course, Blake Snell, Anthony, to the injured list with left shoulder inflammation. He threw a bullpen today, and it didn't go well. He ends up huddling up with Mark Pryor and the trainers. A couple hours later, he ends up on the injured list. Dave afterwards, quote, he started his bullpen, experienced some soreness. We just felt right there. You're going to miss a start. We can backdate the 3 days. Obviously, somebody will make his start on Tuesday. Fabian Ardaya added this in his article that Dave Roberts didn't have a clear timeline for Snell besides the minimum 2 starts he will miss. For now, he said, Snell will travel with the Dodgers to Washington, D.C., rather than fly back to Los Angeles for testing on the shoulder. That part was interesting to me. I don't know if I should be encouraged or concerned that they're not going and getting imaging. Like, is it, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't that big of a deal. It's just rest. It's maintenance. It's precautionary. Or is it like, hey, what the hell are we doing, folks? Go get all the imaging and figure out what we need to do here.
Yeah, I would, in a normal situation with a normal team that gives normal medical updates, I would say that's encouraging. That he's not going back to get imaging right away. Now, it could be a situation where they think the imaging might not be as useful because they want to wait for the swelling to go down.
Great point.
So that could be why. But I think typically with something like this, if you're really concerned about it, you send the guy back.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're not doing that could be seen as, some hope there, some optimism. But I would not be surprised if he misses more than the 2 starts.
Yeah,
I'll say that. I think they probably. I don't think this is going out on a super long limb, but it's a little bit of one. And I'll say that we're not going to see Blake Snell back for a little while. And when I say while, I mean maybe not till like May.
Okay, I was like, is he going to say All-Star break? Like, what's the timeline here? So you're saying maybe a month on the injured list for Snell?
Yeah, that's kind of my initial guess at it.
What's hard with this is there's almost no in between on pitcher, shoulder, elbow injuries, right? Like it either feels like he's going to be out for, 2 weeks and then back, or he's going to be out for 3 months and then back, right? The 4 to 6 week shoulder injury. I'm not saying it can't happen. That would be just precautionary. Hey, shut it down, rest it, let the swelling go down. Let's see where we're at. Slow build up, that kind of thing. But we'll see. So the question now, though, Anthony, is who takes his spot? So Tuesday is Blake Snell's spot in the rotation. Typically, it would be Bobby Miller, Justin Robleski, Landon Knack, the 3 guys in contention. Bobby Miller pitched today, so he will not be in contention. That leaves Robleski, who's thrown 5 2/3 in his 1 start, scoreless innings. That was back on April 1st, so he's kind of his normal what day he would pitch next. Robleski is perfectly online for Tuesday. And then Landon Knack, 4 2/3, 2 earned in his 1 start down in Oklahoma City. He also threw 2 scoreless innings for the Dodgers at the major league level. He last started on April 3rd. So he would be on kind of like 4 days off and then pitching again on Tuesday. They also need a guy for Wednesday because they're trying to go with the 6-man rotation. So they need Tuesday and Wednesday Do you think we see both Robleski and Knack this week filling Snell's spot and then giving Sasaki and Yamamoto the extra day?
I think we probably see something like Robleski makes the first start and Knack makes the second. That would be my guess. And they may be going up and down for each other. So yeah, I think that they probably don't want to do a bullpen game yet because the bullpen's already been throwing a bunch.
Yeah.
And so maybe they try to piggyback a start like one of those with Kasperius or something like that. But I think you probably see Robleski and then Knack. That would be my guess based on keep giving the guys the extra rest.
Yeah.
Knack being the main guy there. So if you had to just pick one, I would say Knack because it's the guy that they know more and the guy that they know can fill this particular role and do it well. But I'm guessing we see both guys.
Yeah. I see some people asking about Tony Gonsolin. Gonsolin, on that same night that Landon Knack started, Gonsolin threw 1 2/3. So Gonsolin's going to be in this mix. He just isn't built up to a place where he's going to be ready for any semblance of a start is my guess. I mean, maybe they just say, hey, 3 innings from Tony Gonsolin on Wednesday, is a better option than like a Landon Knack would be in that spot. I find that hard to believe because of who Knack is and because we've seen both Knack and Robleski at the major league level. So I tend to agree with you. But that also leads to kind of the next update that I wanted to give is Evan Phillips. And this leads into a conversation about the bullpen as a whole. You mentioned, I mean, Glasnow got 6 outs today. So Evan Phillips made his second rehab appearance today, 2 strikeouts. He was the opener. He has not gone back-to-back at any point during this kind of build-up phase. But there's some speculation, Anthony, like, is it possible that Evan Phillips is in the Dodgers bullpen as quickly as tomorrow? It would be his first chance going back-to-back, but the bullpen ate 7 innings today, and they're going to need some dudes to eat some innings. So do you think there's a chance that Evan Phillips, who my guess is definitely going to be back at some point this week, do you think there's a chance he's back as quickly as tomorrow?
That would be interesting because my question would have been like, why not bring him up today, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't shock me. But yeah, I do think he's due this week.
Yeah.
And with that, with what the bullpen looks like in terms of the number of innings they've had to eat already, and then the Snell injury, this is why I have always said, and I will maintain, I don't think that they really seriously entertain trading from this. Yeah. What right now is still a surplus of starting pitching that can perform at the major league level.
Yeah.
Because these situations just have a nasty way of coming up, especially with this team, it feels like. And so I don't think that they give up from that bulk. At least none of the guys who like are frontline kind of starters, right? Like the Dustin May, like anyone who's in the rotation now, and then like Knack, like those kinds of guys. I don't see them making any of those kinds of moves because they're going to have a need for these guys.
Yeah, especially if you want to do a 6-man rotation, which they have. As far as roster stuff, by the way, they do have, I would say, 3 roster spots on the pitching side that they can mess with. So if they wanted to get both Knack and Robleski up, if they wanted to get Evan Phillips back up, that would be Jack Dreyer, who could be optioned down to AAA. He got 7 outs today, so having him sent back down could make some sense.
Sure.
Matt Sauer was who was called up in order to replace Blake Snell. I think we know where he stands in the pecking order on the Dodgers bullpen, and so he will be an innings eater at some point, I imagine. Maybe it's tomorrow, and then maybe he gets sent down. And then the last one, are we nearing Luis Garcia? Thank you for your service time with the Dodgers organization. That guy's pitched 1 million innings. It feels like he's been decent. Like, I'm not here to say he sucked. He wasn't great today, but he worked out of a jam. So the earned run average still looks okay. But I think Garcia, Dreyer, Sauer are all options to be sent down, or in Garcia's case, DFA'd. Ben Kasperius can also be sent down if at some point they wanted to go back to stretching him out towards being a starter. That could be a move they make eventually. But those are the rest. That's where those roster spots will come from when it comes to that. Let's get to a couple super chats, and apologies, Lucy girl, you had sent this in and we hadn't gotten to it. She says, Andy Page's not a good fit with the Dodgers. Get rid of him, please. Yeah, I mean, we both landed on the news that a lot of people aren't going to like, Anthony, that we think Andy Pages' leash might get extended. I've said it has less to do with how Pages has played and more to do with, I think, the James Outman types are the guys that they would be comfortable handing those reins over to, and he just hasn't earned it. I think Dave Roberts has described Hesung Kim as a development project, a future type guy. Estuary Reese has only been in the organization for a couple of days. So I just don't think there's a clear and obvious choice in front of them, which is why you and I both,
right,
sounds like are believing. You said maybe just a few days. I think maybe a couple weeks that Pages has left with the Dodgers. So
I think it's a series by series thing.
Yeah.
In all honesty, like, the equivalent of like the baseball season day to day, because if he continues to screw up like he did in Philadelphia, that leash is getting shorter.
Yeah. Agreed. Justin says trade Pages, Chris Taylor, and a prospect for Nolan Arenado and Ryan Helsley. You would probably need more than that.
The Cardinals
Although
do that in a
Arenado,
heartbeat, right?
what's that?
The Cardinals take that package in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, depending on who the prospect is. Helsley's got some value, so that's the reason. Like, I think Arenado, we'd have to get into, is he actually an asset, or are you doing them a favor by taking that contract? And I think we would have people on both sides. The Chris Taylor, you've got, Pages and Chris Taylor is probably like a push. That's an exaggeration. Pages still has some value, so it would depend on the prospect on who says no. But
no, there's no way. I don't care who the prospect is. I don't think the Pirates agree to that, no matter what.
Yeah. Jedi says, why not trade Pages to the White Sox like Vargas? I mean, I'll say a couple things. Pages defensively is going to make a lot more sense in a corner outfield. If Andy Pages was your right fielder, he plays as competent of defense as you got from Teoscar Hernandez last year, or as Michael Conforto is going to give you. Like, I think he's in that mold. He's not awesome. He has a great arm. Like, he has the best arm of all three of those guys, and we've seen it at times. So I think the Dodgers, Conforto's on a 1-year deal. So I think there is still an opening in a corner outfield on this team moving forward, especially as a platoon guy crushing lefties. At some point, they're going to ask, can we fix the base running, and is the hitting going to get better? But he was a bat-first prospect that you stick in the corner, and the bat will eventually come around. Mm-hmm. If they still believe that, that's why you hang on to him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When they first were talking about him, the thought was he would be a left fielder, which is where you put like sort of your worst of your outfielders, your defensive outfilders. That's where he was supposed to play. And then, as things got shuffled and stuff, he ended up where he ended up throughout the season. But yeah, there might be a hole in left field next season. And so, if he can figure the bat out, they'd be more than happy to put Pages in left field next year.
Yeah. And I'd probably say, not to nitpick, I'd probably say right field because of the arm and just the cannon that he has. Typically, you throw your better arm in right field, but
definitely agree with that. Yeah. And I think it would just be a matter of like making sure he's just because it feels like with Pages, you have to do like regular check-ins to just make sure he's not a complete disaster class in one of the corners also. And as soon as they were like, okay, fine, like maybe they can move him to right field, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get to a few more injury updates. Shohei Ohtani, I don't know if you've heard of him before. He's a guy who will someday pitch for the Dodgers through a 25 or 26, depending on where you look, pitch bullpen session before Saturday. But the key news here, Anthony, is he mixed in splitters for the first time since he restarted his throwing progression. So this got delayed with the start of the regular season, but he appears to be back in his normal routine, which who knows? Originally, the timeline was May. I don't know if this is now late May or if we've moved into June timeline, but as long as Ohtani is ramping up and throwing bullpens, I'm going to be a happy camper.
Yeah. All good news for me in terms of every time he comes out of a bullpen and makes a little small progressions and he's not hurt, it's all good.
Yeah. Clayton Kershaw threw a live bullpen against the Tigers last Friday. I haven't been able to get any news. I believe he was scheduled to throw again this weekend because they were in Philadelphia. I'm not sure if that happened. But there was an article that Bill Plunkett put out basically that was mixed reviews on whether or not you should be encouraged or discouraged. He said he isn't necessarily where he wants to be, but that, quote, it's getting there. He did say he overall is encouraged. Kershaw's a grinder. He's a vet. He knows his body. He knows where this is headed. I'm not. It's the same thing. May, June, doesn't really matter to me. Yeah. Just get this guy healthy, get him on the mound, and I'm all in.
Yeah, I feel the same way about it. Let him take his time. they don't have a real need for him until the second half of the season anyway, like post All-Star break, and probably even a month after that.
Yeah. Michael Kopech, Fabian Ardaya reporting that he's ramping up his throwing program again. He had a forearm injury. It went away. Then they maybe too quickly tried to ramp him up, and it ended up tweaking his shoulder. He also had a sickness in there. So that was a rough month-long stretch for Kopech, dealing with forearm injury that became a shoulder injury, and then he got the stomach bug as well. No timetable for his return, but he's ramping up his throwing program. So good news there for another bullpen arm who could be on the way. Last but not least, Freddie Freeman to the injured list. He is hopeful he will be able to return as soon as eligible. That would be April 10th, which is an off day for the Dodgers. He did say they did an x-ray. There were no chips in the bone or anything like that. So he hopes he's going to be back in the minimum of time. The Dodgers are hopeful, optimistic, to use some of Dave Roberts' favorite words there, but that's what we've got on Freddie Freeman. So on the whole, you look at that, the Snell is by far the biggest stone in the pond, and that's a massive negative for the Dodgers. But good news on Phillips, good news on Ohtani, Kershaw, Kopech, Freeman, and I would include Gonsolin, who we talked about briefly in there. So a lot of these guys that the Dodgers have maybe slow played a little bit seem to be heading in the right direction. So good news there. Let's get to some questions. If you've got any questions, all caps questions, throw those in the chat and we will get to a few. We're already over the hour 10 mark, but almost 1,800 people in here. So we appreciate you. We got 5 or 10 minutes or so for some questions. All caps questions on the front of that, and then we will get to some as we move on. Anthony, I did see one person asking about how we felt about this Washington series coming up. Dustin May is the one guy we know for sure is going to start for the Dodgers in this series. But when you look at the matchup with the Nationals, they're 3-6 on the season. Obviously, the Dodgers are visiting their park where they're 500 on the year. How are you feeling about this matchup?
I hope that this is a series where we can get some of the guys really feeling good offensively. Ohtani, one of them. Maybe that bottom of the order. Maybe Tommy Edman will draw a few walks for you so that you'll be happy.
Not for me. I'm just again just putting out there the information that he has a lower on base percentage than Andy Pages. Max Muncy. He did pass Max Muncy today, by the way, for anybody wondering. He was behind Muncy going into today, but a 1 for 4 for Edman, 1 for 5 for Edman ahead of the 0 for 4 that Muncy had. So
yeah.
You got that.
Look, the Nationals don't have any real dominant starting pitchers.
Well, I will say they have Mackenzie Gore, who was awesome in his first start, 13 Ks over 6 innings, got roughed up a little bit in his second start.
Yeah. So we'll like, I don't think they have an ace, right? Like they don't have a guy who's that guy right now. So looking at this as a series where hopefully they can get some of these bats right. Yeah, absolutely. Eden says, who gets called up to be in the rotation? We talked Robleski, Knack, Jackson Ferris starting the season at AA. So that tells you they think he's a little bit of a ways away, but I think Robleski and Knack are guys that are already on the 40 man. So that's where I would start. Here we go. This is just for you. Los Dodgers wants to know, Anthony, how far are the Lakers making it after seeing them beat the number 1 seed Thunder? That was a different one than the one I watched where they freaking looked like chumps against the Golden State Warriors because Luka was trash. So then they come back when I'm not working the Lakers Nation game anymore and they look awesome. Anthony's a huge Lakers fan. So give us your thoughts, Anthony. Is this team going to the Western Conference Finals? They're playing a little bipolar right now. Like they look like what they look like against the Warriors and they look like what they look like today. I'll say this. I do think that they will be capable, as long as everyone's healthy, they'll be capable of playing that sort of intense style of defense the way we saw them today. If anyone watched the game, that's the kind of defense that I think gives them a legitimate chance to win the Western Conference. If that's the defense, then I think the ceiling is a finals appearance. If they ebb and flow between that and sort of look like what they look like against Golden State, they might be a second round knockout kind of team.
Yeah. And to be clear, I am not a Trailblazers fan, as Alex is asking. I remind my Portland Trailblazer fans up here all the time. I said, you remember that clip where Kobe throws the alley-oop to Shaq? That was the moment your franchise died right there. Yep. They don't like that so much. It's a much more positive memory in my head than it is in theirs for some reason. I can't exactly figure that out, but there you go. Yeah, Lakers are good. I mean, I wouldn't want to mess with them in a playoff series. I don't think they're perfect. I think Oklahoma City's way better than they are, but I would not, no matter how good my team is, want to face LeBron and Luka in a series. So we got 4 questions here. We'll fire through these. Noisy Ninja, should the Dodgers have kept Lux for second base and to be able to put Edman in center instead of Pages? Is there any part of you, Anthony, that in hindsight says, maybe we shouldn't have traded Lux. Maybe we should have just kept him and not tried the Andy Pages experiment?
Not really. Not really. And I was a Lux supporter. You and I were on that bandwagon all season, even when he was struggling, saying, look, keep giving him time, keep giving him time. It ended up paying off for that hot take in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But no, I did think they sold low on him, but I think they were I think that was a decision to clear room more than get something in return. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah. He has not been great this year.
No.
So I think, I don't know if
he's not even playing second base anymore.
I was going to say, I don't think he's been put in his position to succeed. I'll say that. I think they've got him trying some things defensively that I can't imagine help you on the offensive side of things, but it was just best for everybody to move on. I imagine they didn't think Pages would be this bad, though. If you had told them that Pages was going to play like this, I wonder if they would have thought one more beat about that. Keep in mind, they got a pretty sweet package in return for him. Hallelujah. How much does it bother you guys how much the baseball fans are rooting for Sasaki to fail and ex-MLB players are talking smack, but they all rooted for Skeens?
Yeah.
I do think him coming to the Dodgers, all the narrative about it was predetermined, et cetera, did not do him any favors. That's not his fault. But I think he's just the poster child for the evil empire in many ways, and the Dodgers winning. So I think that is a part of it. I'm not accusing everybody of being racist, but I think people by default, when they see somebody who looks different than them, there might be a part of them that is rooting differently, whether they consciously or subconsciously realize it. I think that has to be in the water, at least in some of the conversations we've had. And then I think old MLB players just are constantly rooting against new MLB players. Like we see this in the NBA. I think old guys are always just trying to protect their own legacy and act like they were way better. So Jonathan Lucroy is just trying to be relevant. He's an irrelevant human being, and he just wants to be a tiny bit relevant. So he's going to say something crazy. So I think it's a mix of all this. Anthony, I know you've got thoughts on this. So fire away.
Yeah, I do think it's a mix of everything. I think I don't think it's outward racism, but I think you're right. There's built-in biases that come into play with it. I think that he is even though he's making the league minimum, he is the face for this last offseason because Snell signed so early and the Sasaki thing was such a big deal when it was happening. He became the face of Dodger gluttony and the empire and all that kind of stuff to no fault of his own. And so there's part of that in it. And then I think that some of this is just it's mind-boggling. Like I was watching the Chris Rose, I forgot what their podcast is called, but it's Chris Rose and Trevor Plouffe. And Trevor Plouffe was saying, I hope the Philly fans are just full on Philly, give it to him, make him cry again, like that kind of stuff. And it was like, what, dude? Like, seriously? Like, you're saying this? Like, as a former big leaguer? Like, it was just stupid to me. And so it made it for me personally, because I had watched that like on Friday morning or something like that. It made what Sasaki did yesterday just that much more enjoyable, because what are they going to say now?
Yeah. I had missed Eric Hosmer getting involved. Speaking of guys that have fallen off the face of the earth, saying that
another irrelevant guy.
Exactly. It's like, oh, there's a name I haven't heard in a while. Oh, and the last time I talked about him was as a massively overpaid guy that the Padres couldn't get rid of if they wanted to, which is what happened. He said that hand is obviously sticky. Somebody give him a hug was Hosmer's the summary of his 12. So there you go.
Ridiculous.
Hector, based on the current outfield situation, do you think the Dodgers will be buyers for outfielder at some point this year? I'll expand to say, do you think they buy on a position player that then may move somebody to solve their center field?
Yes. My answer to that is yes. I do think so. Even if it's not like a big, even if it's like a platoon kind of guy. Yes, I do think they're buyers to help fill some of these holes in some way.
Keep in mind that they're, aside from Freddie Freeman, basically fully healthy right now. So at some point, if you look at the 8 position players and say, is one of these guys, and I guess Will Smith's in a different category, but like you look at Tommy Edman, Max Muncy, Freddie Freeman, and then obviously Conforto, Teoscar Hernandez. Like all of those guys need to stay healthy for this to just be one small hole that needs to be plugged. If any of those guys were to go down, there's not an obvious replacement. Maybe Dalton Rushing if we're talking corner outfield and you want to get creative. Maybe Alex Freeland if 4 months from now you feel better. But like the Dodgers do not have immense depth pretty much anywhere. So I think they're fine for right now. But if you're asking me, do I think they're going to be fully healthy for the entirety of the season? The answer is no, which means I think they're definitely going to be a buyer at some point. TQT, it seems like Freeman was ready to play, but the Dodgers decided to IL him. With San Diego and San Francisco off to hot starts, do you think the Dodgers have played it a bit too safe and cautious?
No. I would look, they're in this for the long haul. Like, I don't think anyone in that clubhouse or on that plane to DC right now feels like the Giants are going to win this division because they're in first place tonight. So no, you know what? If that's what they might have done that to like save Freddie from himself a little bit too, where he would have been like, look, man, put me in the lineup. I'm ready. And they were like, they didn't want to have that conversation with him. So they were like, you're out for another week. I'm fine with it. I don't think that it's that big a deal. And if it helps him get a little bit better, then cool. Because that ankle, he said it himself, is probably not going to be right all year.
Yeah. The Dodgers are 9-2. Like they've won a bunch of games without Freddie Freeman. I believe we're still at 2 of 11 games where both Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman have been in the lineup together. And so, I don't think they're worried about the rest of how the division is playing. If this was, middle of September and they were competing for the division title, would they think about this different? Maybe. Yeah. But in March and April, I think it's a safe bet. Canoe says, do we know how and when former Dodgers, Buehler, Lux, etc. received their World Series rings? It's just, if those guys are ever coming to Dodger Stadium, then that's the easiest one. They get a ceremony. If not, I think obviously the Dodgers play every team in Major League Baseball now. So maybe if they only play in Boston or I guess Cincinnati definitely comes here. Boston, AL teams, I think they alternate. So I don't know. Right. I think the Dodgers are in Boston this year. Is that right?
I don't know if they are or not. I don't recall that. But like if they weren't, it would be a situation where like maybe when Boston came to Anaheim or something like that, like the brass would go down and give him his ring.
Yeah, it's in Fenway. They're in Boston in July. So So on the road for Walker Buehler, they'll get it. There was a cool story about Hunter Fiducia when he got called up.
Yeah.
Austin Barnes presented him with the World Series ring, which is cool. So there you go. But that'll do it for us, folks. Tons of content, tons of super chats. We appreciate you. Tons of engagement. Over 1,800 people in here. We'll do this. JP wants to know current win total estimate after this start. I was on the high end. I was taking the over on 110. So I feel great. I feel good about my over prediction.
Anthony, my prediction was 105. I'm tempted to go over now, but I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick.
Okay. We'll be patient. We won't overreact. I watch and I'm like, holy crap, this team is going to win so many games on accident this year. Just because, I mean, like today, they were down, 6-2. And it's like, all right, Sunday afternoon, enjoy some family time, check back in later. And then all of a sudden it's 7-6. I mean,
Noisy Ninja says 160.
160. Still in play. Folks, we appreciate you for joining us. As always, check out DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue 1958. If you missed it, our guy Blake did an interview with Anthony Bonda that's up on our YouTube page. You can go and check that out. It was a full hour-long sit-down, which is good stuff there. And we've got some fun stuff coming for you in the next week or so. I got the chance to sit down with Robert Vargas, who's a super famous muralist. He did a Fernando mural in Los Angeles. He did the Ohtani mural in Los Angeles. He did an Ohtani mural in his hometown in Japan. So we got a chance to chat with him about some cool stuff, by the way, that he has coming up. So stay tuned for that in the next couple of days. And we've got a torpedo bat interview lined up, but not just any torpedo bat interview, a gentleman that I think some of you might recognize. He might be up on my shelf somewhere behind me. So stay tuned on that. Where I never want to throw names out there until it's confirmed because I've got burned before, but I feel good about that one. So stay tuned in the next couple of days for that one as well. That is Anthony Witrado. I am Jeff Spiegel, folks. Enjoy the rest of your night. As always, go Dodgers. And yes, still champs.